Allegra Pacheco is chief of the West Bank Protection Consortium. She joins me now from the occupied West Bank. Allegra, thanks for your time. The Israeli raids across the occupied West Bank, they've been absolutely relentless this past year, haven't they?
There have been many arrests and detention, as you mentioned. In addition, the conditions in the prisons have been very much troubling and a violation of human rights, with overcrowding, lack of sufficient food, and very, very poor hygiene, and at times raids inside the prisons as well.
And Allegra, Israel continues to turn a blind eye to the violence and attacks carried out repeatedly by illegal Israeli settlers.
Well, overall, the situation has deteriorated dramatically in the last year from a protection or human rights perspective. All the indicators point to that, whether it's fatalities, injuries, access and movement with the increase in obstacles. And yes, Israeli settler violence has increased dramatically over the past year, leading to Palestinian communities being chased out and abandoned.
Allegra, can I ask, what do you think Benjamin Netanyahu's long-term game plan in Gaza now is? I mean, it's been 1 year. All of the hostages have not come home. Hamas is still in existence. I mean, it has been a year where he has not delivered on what he said he would.
Well, I'm a humanitarian, so it's a little bit difficult for me to comment on that directly. But what I would like to say is that in the West Bank, dramatically, the steps towards annexation, towards Israeli full and permanent control in the West Bank is moving ahead. There are lots of political horizons, one state, two state, but the only horizon being implemented is the Israeli takeover of the West Bank. We've seen this by dramatic changes in the governance of the West Bank. For the first time in 57 years, Israeli settlers govern Palestinians. The authority was taken away, was transferred from the Israeli military, which wasn't great anyway, to Israeli civilians in violation of international law. We're talking about a military occupation, and it's supposed to be temporary and ruled by a military until there's a peace agreement.
And Allegra, just finally, on the humanitarian front, we've seen things deteriorate to such an extent in Gaza that diseases like polio are now coming back into the population.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the latter part of the question, but the situation in Gaza is catastrophic. And one of the major reasons for the catastrophe, not only the terrible bombings and killings of tens and thousands of civilians, but also the lack of aid, the ability of the aid to come in safely and to be distributed. The so-called evacuations, which are really forcible displacements of huge numbers of populations, are causing the situation to deteriorate further as people have no resources left to survive. People are hungry, the medical care is in terrible condition, and there are no resources to bring these materials in and help the Gazan people survive. It is a very, very serious situation.
Allegra Pacheco in the occupied West Bank, thank you for joining us.